And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday edition of Bean Bites. I'm here with my co host, Dr. Andrea Long Nelson, and I'm your host as well, Claude Trotter. Dr. Nelson, how we doing today?
We are doing awesome, and we're so glad that we have everyone here. I just want to thank everybody out in virtual land for joining us this evening to learn more about B.E.A.M.
Great. Glad to have you guys all here. Let's go ahead and slide into the first slide here. And the first slide is basically us. My name is Claude Trotter once again. I am the Director of Communication and Technology for B.E.A.M Education. As you can see, I'm flying my alumni colors tonight, HBCU proud, Hampton University. So I just want to say hello to all my Hamptonians out there. I come to you from Hampton. After I left Hampton, I spent about 15 years in broadcast television. Before I retired from broadcast TV, I was moved out to the Dallas-Fort Worth area by Channel 4. After I retired from TV, I worked a while both in the elementary school system or in the public school system as the assistant to the Director of Communications for the Grand Prairie ISD. I also wound up teaching post-secondary education for the Connecticut School of Broadcast. I've also been a marketing person and had my own production company. I did all this before I came to meet Dr. Andrea Nelson, and we worked together to be able to create the dream that is B.E.A.M. And now I turn it over to you, Dr. Nelson. Go right ahead so you can tell your part of the story.
Well, since you're giving a shout out for Hampton University, I definitely have to give a shout out for North Carolina Central University, because that was the undergraduate program that made me be able to go out in the world and be able to get a master's degree from Louisiana Tech in reading as a reading specialist. I have another master's from Centenary College in Shreveport, Louisiana, that is in the principalship. And then my terminal degree, which is my doctoral degree, which is in elementary education from pre-K through college. Now, just to give you a little bit more about my background, yes, I am a career educator, but I am also an entrepreneur because of all of the different ways that I've seen education, from being a principal to being an assistant soup to being a literacy coach. I have seen education from many different perspectives, and that is why we want to bring to you a new model for looking at education called B.E.A.M Microschool. So that's a little bit about myself and Mr. Trotter. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about B.E.A.M Microschool and why it is a 21st century education for 21st century scholars.
All right. I'm not sure if you're seeing this on your end, but it looks like we got a little glitch on this end. On this slide on who we are.
So I can talk that through until it comes up. So when you think about who we are, as we've told you, we have extensive experience in education. And so because of that extensive view of education and experience that we've had, the dynamic program that we've created for your student is one that is a personalized program where we offer the opportunity for learner-centered, hands-on experience using entrepreneurship, using societal governances, and also using the content area that we usually see in education, but we have put that content and embedded it within a program that we ensure that the students that we have the opportunity to serve will be ready for the 21st century.
And our education philosophy is explained clearly here. B.E.A.M Microschool Academy fosters individual growth and collaborative learning through personalized education, teaching economic concepts, entrepreneurial principles, and societal governance in a safe, learner-centered ecosystem to prepare students to be future innovators. Dr. Nelson, would you like to speak a little bit more to that?
Well, I think you hit it totally. You know, I know you read from it, but just think about it. We are 25 years already into the 21st century. But I wonder, as we look at the educational landscape, how many offerings really are preparing students to be collaborative, to really understand how economics work, and to totally understand what it's going to be like, say, 25 years from now with all of the AI. So our goal is to provide your student with the opportunity to be exposed. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I don't want to surprise you or give you a preview until we get there. But we truly believe that we are in an ecosystem. And I know that that's a scientific term, but I want you to think about an ecosystem as an interdependent system where all of the pieces work together so that you have a very tight learning organization.
Welcome to B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. Discover the future of education. That's what we're here to talk about. Dr. Nelson, go ahead and I'll let you talk about the finer points of our Microschool Academy.
Mr. Trotter, we have 4 key points. And those 4 key points are community and collaboration. And I know that you have been in jobs where you really had to collaborate. So I want you to think about it as I talk about these 4 points. The other thing is innovative learning. And so I want you to think about how many times after finishing college that there was a need for you to be innovative enough about what you were learning and to be a self-personalized learner where you were able to pick up a new skill set without, say, formal education. And so finally, we also believe that there should be passionate individuals working with your child. And as you can see, if you look at the slide, we have facilitators down there. But our facilitators are traditionally what we think of as teachers. But as we talked about the ecosystem, we know that when we have an ecosystem, there is an interdependence of everyone working together. And as they work together, we're all facilitators teaching each other something new. So, Mr. Trotter, when you think about these 4 key big principles, I know you've seen this in the workplace. And so can you talk a little bit about your opportunity with being in collaboration, with having to learn something new and personalize it for yourself, but also the individuals who you didn't think that were teachers really were your facilitators in helping you move to the next level?
Well, what I've always tried to do is whatever job or project that I've been a part of is continuing to learn and grow, to absorb as much as I can from that project or that job, and look through the sources, through books, magazines, podcasts, YouTube videos, audiobooks, whatever it is out there to help me hone my skills and my knowledge on whatever the project or the challenge arises and demands. And we want to set up that same educational philosophy through our community, through collaboration, coming up with new ideas to solve problems through innovative learning. And of course, you're going to have passionate facilitators like myself, Dr. Nelson, plus guest facilitators on our Friday. We'll talk more about that later. Like I said, I'm just teasing it for right now. And of course, we're going to adjust the learning for that individual student so we can keep it innovative, fresh, and keep them active and engaged. Anything to add to this before we move on to the next
No,
slide,
I
Dr.
think
No?
I think we've been given little ticklers, and so I think we could actually move to the next slide because we've already talked about emotional learning. We've talked about how through the ecosystem there's community involvement, and that everyone is seen in the lens of being a facilitator and adding to our ecosystem. So I think we can jump to the next slide.
All right. There we go. Hop into the next slide as requested.
So he's talked a little bit about it. And so now we're going to share with you some of our very unique offerings that put us apart from other possible educational paths that you could take with your children. One thing that you should need to know about us, we're not trying to change the educational landscape. What we're trying to do is add to the educational landscape in such a way that there are more than just one traditional choice in what can be offered to children. And it seems like we would want to do that, considering that we are currently in the 21st century. So therefore, we know so much about research and technology that we totally understand that no individual learns the same. And so therefore, there has to be a lot of flexibility in the offerings. So let's jump into these offerings. The first thing that we do is, and I'm going to tie these two together, is because for many of us, we've gone to school, and for me, I was sitting in first grade and I was 5. And so, but you would think that a 5-year-old would know how, a first grader would know how to read. However, did they really know that I knew how to read? What kind of assessments were done on me to ensure that I was ready for that first grade experience? So we don't arbitrarily place children. What we do is we use something called the Scholar Inventory. And what the Scholar Inventory does is it does 4 things for you as a parent and us as the providers in the ecosystem that we're creating, so that we have an interdependence on ensuring that our children learn exceptionally well. So let me tell you the four things of the Scholar Inventory. Number 1, we look to find where your students' strengths are. So let's say, like when I was a child, I was really strong at reading, but math was my challenge area. So because of that, I was reading higher than where I was performing academically, mathematically. So just think, if I had done this Scholar Inventory, they would have known exactly where I was, and they could have personalized my learning so that not only would they know my challenge, which is math, my strength, which was reading, but we also look at how does your child learn. I'm a visual learner. Mr. Trotter, what are you? Are you a visual learner or a kinesthetic learner or a tactile learner? What kind of learner are you?
I think I'm a little bit of all of those. I mean, I like using my hands. With my dad being a contractor and architect, he had me out there learning on my hands. But I also pick up a lot visually, watching YouTube videos and listening to audiobooks. So I think I'm a little bit balanced of all of them.
And so with that, because you have such a range of how you learn, can you imagine as being a little boy sitting in a class and the only thing that you could do was sit in that desk, but there weren't any tactile activities, there weren't any visual or auditory things that would stimulate you well enough to learn. So when I look at the Scholar Inventory and I look at the personalized learning, we are able to do that for your student every day. The other thing with that, because of the Scholar Inventory, we're also able to do flexible cluster grouping. I'm going to say that again. Flexible cluster grouping. Let's say you had a first grader, and that first grader was reading on 3rd grade in math, in reading, but in math, like I was that child that wasn't doing so well in math. So what we would do with those cluster groupings is shift kids in and out based on where their skill level is. And as they spend time in that group and they master that particular concept, we then move them to another group. So the groups are not stagnant, they're constantly moving. The other offering that fits into this whole cycle is our alternative arrival and dismissal. So when I say alternative arrival and dismissal, because that doesn't look like the traditional start time of a school, where we have two start times. We have an 8 o'clock time and a 10 o'clock time. Now, you're going to want to pay attention to that at those 2 hours between 8 and 10. So if you come to school at 8, you'll leave at 3. And if you come to school at 10, you'll leave at 5. Now, I know you're saying, why is it that they have a school where they have these alternative arrivals and dismissals? So let's talk a little bit more about that. Take us to the next slide, Mr. Trotter.
There you go, Dr. Nelson.
So what we do is, and we still haven't told you why those 2 hours are important, but let's talk a little bit more about the offerings. So of course, we're going to teach core subjects. And as we teach those core subjects, we're going to do them in an interdisciplinary program. So that means that reading, math, science, and language arts and social studies are done through project-based learning. And so therefore, kids have to take all of those isolated skills that they learn in math and reading and science and social studies, and now they will have to apply their learning into a project-based situation. The next thing that we offer is language learning, and we offer 2 languages. We offer Spanish, and then we offer sign language. Mr. Trotter, can you tell them why we offer sign language?
Because, that is one of those languages in which we can give back to the community and also be able to give our students an opportunity to have their own business as an interpreter and be of service to others while they're doing it, so that they can learn how to make a difference while they make a living.
So we want children to be entrepreneurs really early, don't we, Mr. Trotter?
That's right. We want to give them that entrepreneurial mindset from the very start.
And so therefore, that's why sign language is such a good way to do that. Because think about the little 5-year-old that comes to B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, and think about what would happen by the time they're 10 if they really know how to use sign language. So finally, the big thing that we also need to talk about is what we call Lab Day. And Lab Day stands for learning, applying, and building. With Lab Day, your child has the opportunity. Yes, we talked about reading, math, science, and social studies, but we have another opportunity for children. And so on Fridays, what children are allowed to do is they take courses in environmental stewardship, because we know that right now there is global climate change occurring. And so if global climate change is occurring, we need to get children to start really thinking about the environment and how do we keep the environment so that we can have an environment where humans are healthy and safe. The next thing is, the other course could be global citizenship, digital technology with ethics and etiquette. And then also we offer art and design, as well as we offer mass communications. Because think about how all of the AI and the technology go together, so that our children have to be experts at introducing themselves. They have to be an expert at possibly creating a podcast of their own. They have to be able to do all of these different shifts and be flexible so that they can really be those productive citizens in the 21st century.
and also have that critical thinking, knowing how to interview somebody, research a project, getting both sides of a situation or an event so that they can present it in a way that will tell a balanced, fair and balanced reporting of the event as a story. That's one of the things I picked up in my training in mass communication was always look at both sides. Our existence here is binary, so it's important that we get both sides.
So we told you that we were going to tell you about some of those big rocks that really support the program that we have. So we talked a little bit about the scholar inventory and why the scholar inventory is so important. We talked about that there were 4 major components to the scholar inventory. We look for challenges and we look for kids' strengths so that we can accelerate and intervene where their challenges lie. Number 2 is we look for how students learn. And number 3 is we look at the interests of the child. And number 4 is we will interview families so that we can extend what goes on in the house, but also make it a part of what goes on into the micro school. So once we have that scholar inventory, we turn it and take all of the information with your input, because we did talk about collaboration in this presentation. So you collaborate with us to create a personalized education plan. This becomes your students' roadmap for their strengths, their weaknesses, their interests, and their culture. But the most thing that it does in relationship to the interest is kids have the opportunity during the day to work on things that are of interest to them. The next thing is that 2 hours that we were talking about, which is called P cubed, prep, propel, power session. Those 2 hours happen 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. As we have said repeatedly, this is the time for intervention, acceleration, but there's some other key components to that. The one thing that we start out with is motivation, and we talk about coaching kids because children specifically know exactly where they are academically, and so that conversation is had with them every day. The other part of that is because of the 2 hours, we can introduce students to their new skills that they might come up with, but we also can teach them those new skills in such a way that they're done in mini sessions so that when they are working through the rest of the day, they have been exposed to new skills. And when they're working through the rest of the day, those facilitators are working with smaller groups. They are working with students on making sure that they're doing the projects, how the criteria and rubrics tell us that they need to be done. And all of this is done in a multi-age project-based learning model so that children have the opportunity not to just work with children in their age group, but it's a cross section. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is why did we choose multi-age grouping? So we will talk about the fact that we have an upper school and a lower school. So Mr. Trotter is going to go to that next slide, and he's going to tell you why multi-age schooling.
So why multi-age schooling? One, because we can personalize the learning to the pace of your individual child. Secondly, we're going to have collaborative and social benefits. You know, for those of you guys that have multiple kids, you know how the older kids wound up helping the younger kids learn, and it accelerates the learning for the younger kids and reinforces the learning knowledge that the older kids have. So it works hand in hand to help both sides. We're going to work to reduce the competition and increase the cooperative learning state. Competition can be good, but it's even better when you learn how to cooperate and compete as a team, not just as an individual. So we're going to set things up to foster positive energy, whether it's individual or group learning. And then we're going to encourage independence and responsibility. You know, we want your kids to take ownership in their education because they're learning for themselves. They're not learning for you. They're not learning for me. They're learning for them so that they can make a better lives for themselves and for our community. And then we're going to have flexibility in our curriculum because we believe that the entire ecosystem winds up creating learning, and everybody's learning from one another. You know, it's just not just the facilitators, but learning from other students, and even the facilitators learning from the students themselves. Dr. Nelson, did I miss anything? Anything you want to add to that?
I don't think you missed anything. I think, the thing about the multi-age schooling is that it's amazing because your child is accelerated in that environment, especially when it's set up like a true community, a true ecosystem where children don't feel like they don't belong, but everyone feels like they belong. And I think after the pandemic, we need to really build that up in our children even more, of having that feeling that they can come to a place and feel like they're included, but also just love to learn. And so that's what we want to create, an environment where children just want to come every day and love to learn.
So true, so true. Now, B.E.A.M scholars, tell us a little bit about how the lower school grouping, the ones from 5 to 7, work for our viewers.
So we have two groupings, the lower school grouping, which is ages 5 to 7, and that includes our innovators, which are our 5-year-olds. I want you to think about your own child. If you have a child, or if you do have a child, I think about my son, because he was the baby and because he was around children that were older, because there's a 12-year gap between my children. When he went to school that particular day, my husband was trying to make sure that he was settled and he was there. But my son had another idea. He said, "I'll see you later, Daddy," because he saw children that were his age that he was going to be able to interact with. And so that's what we want to create for our 5-year-olds, our 6-year-olds, and our 7-year-olds, because we know when the joy of learning takes over, it becomes contagious. And so therefore, when you look at your innovators, which are our 5-year-olds, our trailblazers, which are our 6-year-olds, and our explorers, which are our 7-year-olds, exactly how they feel about education, and did they internalize the excitement of what it feels like to learn every day. So let's talk a little bit about the upper school grouping. The upper school grouping consists of ages 8 through 10. Now, we have said that we do not have arbitrary grades like we're used to in a traditional school. So it takes a minute to wrap your head around all of the different things that we're going to do to serve your child. But when you think about it, wouldn't everybody want personalized education for their child, where their student is receiving close to 8 hours every week of personalized instruction? Well, this is why this allows us, because that flexible grouping becomes so important, and it allows us to really hone in onto the challenges as well as hone into their strengths. And so in the upper grades, we have our visionaries, which are our 8-year-olds, our catalysts, which are our 9-year-olds, and our mentors, who are 10-year-olds. And just think, we call those 10-year-olds mentors because they become the seniors in the microschool at B.E.A.M Microschool. And so they're the ones who are doing some of those peer presentations and showing the other students, how do I showcase what I've been working on? How do I discuss what I'm good at? How do I do all of these different things that become internalized so that as I move up the ladder in my educational career as a student, that I have a mixed bag in my backpack of how I learn and how I get along with people.
And I want to take this quick moment to tell our viewers, if you're out there listening in cyberspace, please drop your questions in the comments. If we don't get them on this B.E.A.M broadcast, we're going to be happy to get them in the next B.E.A.M broadcast. And also go to our website, beameducation.org, where you can actually register on our mailing list or our contact list, and we can share information for you in the future.
So we've talked about our unique offerings, and we've talked about the opportunity to really find out and hone in where your student is, and that we do it in such a manner that ensures learner-centered, personalized instruction for your scholar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about sample lesson. And so this sample lesson that we're going to talk about, you're going to get to see it from two perspectives. One perspective that you're going to see it from will be seen from what would happen in a lesson called Eco-Innovator Students, Entrepreneurs for Sustainable Future. You're going to see what that lesson looks like, or that unit looks like, for our lower school. And then we're going to show you that unit for what it looks like for our upper school. Now, the one thing that I want to really emphasize is, although that we're doing project-based learning, we teach through the TEKS. So we use the standards. And we're going to make sure, as we said, that it is an interdisciplinary lesson where kids have to use everything: their math, their science, their social studies, and reading. So through that, let's jump into this one, and I'm going to tell you what the goal of the Eco-Innovator Student Entrepreneur for a Sustainable Future. This particular lesson is on entrepreneurship, and we're going to identify environmental issues. And then after we identify some of those environmental issues, we're going to figure out how we brainstorm. Students will figure out how to brainstorm this particular environmental issue, and how do I solve it once I've identified it. And then what they're going to do is, working together, they're going to figure out a product or a service that they can create that is going to make the world a better place. I met a little boy the other day who was creating, he had seen the Roomba, and so he decided that if you could have a vacuum cleaner that would come out and pick up the dirt, why can't you have something that would scrub the walls? So he said because his little sister tends to use crayons on the wall, so he would love to invent something that you could use and it would just automatically clean off the walls. I said, okay, I really want to see that. So that's what this lesson is about. So Mr. Trotter, could you move to the next slide?
Here you go, Dr. Nelson.
So if you look at the lower school, you will see that all of the content areas are taught, like we said in the past, and that this particular lesson is totally aligned to the state of Texas TEKS, which is the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills Standards. And so we have listed them out. And remember that the standards don't change, but they develop and they expand and get more sophisticated as you move up the grade level. So these are the standards that you would see in a lower school grouping. Next slide. So what we're sharing with you is an excerpt of a 6-week unit. And so these lessons consist of the first week and the second week. If you look at this, you will see that it says introduction and exploration in the lower grades. And that becomes important because some students may not have had that vocabulary of talking to their families about natural environments and man-made environments. So this is where this conversation would go. What's the difference between a man-made environment and what's the difference with a man-made environment and a natural environment? What does it look like? Where is it more controlled? Why? What's on that? So all of those kind of things we would talk to kids about. We would have books that share that story with environments. We would have class discussions. We would write our own stories related to that particular topic. And we would also have students be able to really go home and take a list and really think about what's on the outside and what's on the inside and come up with their own list. Then as the teacher, we could take that list and create different lists and do a lot of different things with it. We could teach classification, we could teach math. There are a lot of things that we can do around that lesson. So then the other thing, now that students understand the difference between a natural environment and a man-made environment, we're going to start talking about environmental issues. And as we start talking about those environmental issues, we're going to get kids to go on nature walks. They're going to do observations. They're going to really start thinking about, is this a problem? You know, when we put the trash out, I know a lot of little 5-year-olds don't even think about on Monday nights when they have to take the trash out with dad. They don't think about the fact that where does all that trash go? So then that's a conversation to start having with them to think about, well, could we recycle some of that trash? And let kids really start thinking about those kind of environmental issues. Are there things at the house that we could reuse? So all of those things go in that lesson. And then by week 2, they're into learning about solutions. And they're starting to think about, how do I take care of the environment? Parents are going to love this lesson because, number one, if you've ever had, and I was the mother of twins, and so you can only imagine what their bedroom looked like. So this lesson works on them understanding the environment and that there are 2 types of environment. But can you see what would happen when you start talking about a man-made environment and why it's important to keep a man-made environment clean at the house? Keeps you well, keeps you feeling safe when it's clean. And then with the little folk, talk about the world and how do we take care of the world from an outside viewpoint. And so then we get into lessons, like I said, of recycling, conservation, where they're going to start thinking about things even at 5, 6, and 7 that they can do, and maybe even come up with their own campaign by the time we get to lesson 6, week 6 of the whole unit. So now let's jump into the upper school. And as he's moving that slide, you're going to see a huge difference in the vocabulary, because we move from, and there we are again, showing you that this is all core content and it's all based on the TEKS. So what I want you to think about as he moves to the next slide, how does this move to a higher level of critical thinking and getting kids to move into levels of how they think and how they work? So because they're going to have to do some writing, they're going to have to do some research, they're going to have to talk to their group, but then they might have to talk to some adults. So all of this goes into the upper school multi-age group. So we're laying the foundation. Remember, in the other, we were working on getting them to understand the 2 environments. We're here, we already know that they know the environment. Unless there's some kids that we might have to do some front loading with to ensure that they know what that is. But in this, they're going to look at sustainability and entrepreneurship. And they're going to think about their environment in such a way with how do we need to change the environment so that we have sustainability and we become entrepreneurs in thinking new ways on how do we keep our environment clean, safe, and livable. So students would be involved in community mapping, problem identification. Once you identify that problem, they might actually now not just list and name those environmental issues that they saw. They're going to take it even further. They're going to look at a specific community Maybe they're going to look at a community that's low socioeconomic, or a community that's in another part of the community. And so they'll be specifically doing an audit. Well, how many times do we see trash in the streams of where we live? Or how do we recycle? So they're going to take it and they're going to go a little bit deeper by doing audit, data collection, and team discussions. And then by week 2, because of all of this, identifying the problem, doing the environmental audit, they take all of the information and now they do deep research. And so now they're looking at investigating their particular problems that came up in their environmental audit, and figuring out how we're going to solve this problem. What would be a way for us to solve this problem? And so they can use the internet. They will be able to consult different experts. They might have to write a little email to reach out to someone, maybe at one of the ag places at a university, so that they can find out more about the environment, or they might go to the local university to reach out to someone who does research on environmental problems. And then the final is, now that they've done all of that, now it's time for them to problem solve and brainstorm and come up with solutions to the problems that they found in their environmental audit. So as you can see, there is a lot of thinking that goes on in these project-based lessons that support kids being able to do all of those things that we want them to do, but in a way that is not in isolation, where we're saying, take out your reading book, we're going to read for this, because we've already done all of those kind of things. So now they're really ready to take what they know about reading and apply it to learning more about their environment or the ecosystem in which they live in. So, Mr.
Now, the
Trotter,
steps
I know
for enrollment.
really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me take this a little bit. Steps for enrollment.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the welcome event. This is one of those welcome events. We welcome you. Thank you. Glad that you're here. And then the next step would be, and we're also going to have some welcome events in the community. So they posted and look for those events. We had a nice one at Lady T's hair salon just before Easter. Had a great time meeting parents, meeting some of the students out there. Then after you participate in one of our welcome events, we would like to set an appointment with you for a personalized interview of your child, your family, and what your goals are, and what your child's goals are, so we can customize and develop a scholarly inventory, which is step number 3. Once we develop that scholarly inventory, we can wind up turning that inventory into a personalized portfolio, in which we will customize a learning plan for your individual student. And then finally, as we get ready to open up the doors in the fall of 2025, we will have orientation and integration, so that not only your child, but the whole ecosystem, the whole family can see where we're going to build the future leaders of. Did I leave anything out, Dr. Nelson?
I think you said it very succinctly, but you know what? There's always that issue around, this sounds like a good program, but how much is it going to cost? So before you jump to the slide, why don't you tell them a little bit? Oh, you jump to the slide. Why don't you tell them?
Well, I was trying to anticipate I was trying to anticipate what you were calling for. So basically what Dr. Nelson's alluding to is we have what we call, or what I like to call, a 12 by 12 learning environment, which means that our doors of our campus are open 12 hours a day, 7 to 7. Dr. Nelson has told me several times that her role as a principal, there were many days that she went to open up her campus and there were already kids waiting outside in the cold to get it. And we know in this modern day environment, there are plenty of latchkey kids, latchkey before school, latchkey after school, and we want to provide a safe environment for our future leaders of tomorrow to be able to grow and prosper. So we're going to keep the doors of our campus open from 12 to 12. Even though the later session gets out at 5, the doors will still be open until 12 o'clock. Other fun activities and tutoring available to keep your scholar engaged.
You know what I didn't say though, Mr. Trotter? Mr. Trotter.
What was that? What did you miss?
You know, I didn't say, we talked about the P cubed, and I said the 2 hours were from 8 to 10, but I did not tell them what happens to the kids that come in at 10.
No, you didn't.
And so because I didn't. And so, but because those children come in at 10 and the first staggered group, arrival group comes in at 8, those children who come in from 10, their PQ time is from 3 to 5. So just want to put that out there. So like I said previously, everyone gets 4 days of 2-hour instruction specifically designed for them. It doesn't matter if you come in at 8 or you come in at 10. Every 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you will get your 2 hours of learning, personalized learning that's specifically designed for you.
And that can help you catch up in areas that you might be weak in, like Dr. Nelson was kind of weak in math. I was kind of weak in writing and spelling. So you'll have that personalized attention to get caught up. But in those areas where you're accelerating, we can also front load you so that you can even excel more in those areas. Now, we're talking about back to the tuition and payment option. Now, I know a lot of people look at that big number, $20,000. Well, that's a whole lot of money. Well, think about this. What we found out is a lot of times people are paying close to that amount just for daycare for their child. And when you break it down, being open for 12 months year-round, out of the year, 12 hours a day, that's an investment of only like $6.70 an hour for your child. And I know that I believe the investment in my child's education is definitely worth more than $6.70, and one of the best values out there when you think about what comes along later with college or any post-educational funding that's out there. If you go on like Dr. Nelson to get her doctorate and stuff like that, she'll tell you that learning costs a lot more than $6.70 an hour. Now, like I said, that's a 12-month plan. Everybody's heard in the news about the voucher program that's been passed here in Texas. Even though it'll be a year or two before that's implemented or accessible directly, we are planning on how that voucher can cut the cost of our scholars attending our campus. Go ahead, Dr.
Mr. Trotter. Because of the price, because we did not want to price any family out, because we know the power of education and we want all families to be involved in the education, which is a new slide that we have to add, but we have the opportunity for a sliding pay scale. And so depending on what your family makes, you might fall in one of our 5 tiers. Tier 1 being the lowest tier and tier 5 being the highest tier. Based on income and based on your last tax return, that tells us what you need to pay. Now, the other thing that we do to make sure that we can either lower that tuition even more is something called our service credits, because there are a lot of moving parts to running a school. We might need help with the cleaning of the building. We might need help with you helping a teacher cut out materials that she needs, or you might help to program the technology that we're going to use with the kids. Or you might be one who reaches out and helps us to get more community and partnerships so that we can pay less tuition at the school and the costs go down. So if you're doing all these things, then you're helping us to create that ecosystem where we're providing a 21st century education for 21st century scholars in a way that your service becomes monetary, just as if you were paying the tuition monthly. Don't you agree with that, Mr. Trotter?
I agree. I agree. And we also have opportunities to sponsor some technologies. Yeah, and of course, we'd be happy to give you credit. You know, if your business helps donate some Oculuses or some Chromebooks or something like that, there's a space on there to let them know who donated that. And even if your kids don't come to our campus, we're still open for donations from our communities and partnering with our community as well. So as you can see here, we talked about the discounts that you get for early payment, flexible down payment. This kind of speaks for itself. So we're going to move on to the next slide here. Tuition and payment options, fostering a welcoming environment for our students. There is a multi-student discount as well. That's clearly spelled out here, so we can help you out in that area because we want this to be an ecosystem of the entire family. And big brother, big sister, little sister, we want to have them working together and extend their family unit to their big class. Anything else that you wanted to say about the sibling discount?
No, because I think we have made sure that this is a very inclusive program. Even those families who might be considered low socioeconomic, we have figured out a way to even support them being able to get a quality education from a little micro school like B.E.A.M. So just to let you know, families, we are looking for 50 founding families this year. And those 50 founding families will help us put some of those structures and systems in place. And that is why we have that integration and orientation, because we talked a lot about ecosystems, but we really want you to be a part of what we do to prepare children. And so we've shared with you our vision of what we would like to see for children. And so if you're interested,
you can become part of the B.E.A.M movement and join us at www.beammicroschool.org or contact us at information@beameducation.org, or you can go to beameducation.org and you can register for more information, register your child, and even register and donate. We are 501(c), so that donation is tax deductible. That can be, like we said, monetarily and write a check, or we have a list of technologies that we need, and you can donate that way as well. Dr. Nelson, what else would you like to add to this?
I think because we want to honor people's time, and we've been on for 53 minutes, I think that we should be closing out and saying to everyone one more time, thank you so much in virtual land for coming in and listening to our vision for education in the 21st century for your 21st century scholar.
Thank you guys all for joining us. Please join us again next week. We will be here the same bat time, same bat channel. And please invite your friends, family, and relatives to come out to join us as well. So until next time, thank you very much. And we will